Hello, everyone. Thank you guys again for joining me here. I got a little tongue tied there, at Underneath Her Skin. Now, if you are new, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel so that you will not miss another video or upload. Today, I have with me my dope principal, Principal Pugh. We've been chatting about courageous leadership and what that really means.
Yes.
So this is part 2 of a 3-part series that we are doing. And in this part, we're going to talk about trauma and resilience. So please stick around and just join the conversation and give a like if you're enjoying this video, share it, and definitely subscribe. So we know that trauma is something that, especially in this day and age, we're all experiencing. So I wanted you to talk with us a little bit about trauma from a leadership standpoint. How does that, how have you been affected, if at all, by trauma?
So it's like, if I had to think about it, my whole leadership journey has been stricken by trauma. And it's interesting because I've been thinking about this tied to trauma and like leadership and why we become stronger leaders and how has the trauma informed the type of work that we do. And I think if it wasn't for the trauma, I certainly would be where I am today. So I think my first year as a principal, I took on a job that I really wasn't ready for. I wasn't ready for, it wasn't my tribe. It wasn't my fit, but I was so worried about that title.
Yes.
Getting that, I was in a competitive principal preparation program. So it was like we were being bred to be principals. And I didn't get what I wanted because I wanted to open up a school and it got delayed. So I was like rushing because I was worried about what everybody else thought. And was just in a situation that I didn't want to really be in. And then also my uncle passed away and my father was diagnosed with ALS. So the trauma of going to a place that you just don't see yourself fitting in, doing something that you always dreamt to do, but it just isn't for you. That same year, the year following, my best friend was killed in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
And then my father died 3 months later. So I almost left the profession because I was just like, like really just
I
like
can't imagine.
no way. First time I didn't feel successful and and not really realizing how much I was going through at that time and not being kind to myself. So fit is so important for me, right? Like fit, it's important now. Like people think I have an unorthodox way of interviewing, but I always feel like my most important job is who I put in front of the children. So fit is so important. And I'm like, just don't come here because you think it's cool to be at Merrick. Like, don't just come here because you want to be that teacher that wants to say, I work with those kids and make a difference. Fit is so important. You have to be here because you want to be here, because if not, it's going to be too hard. So I think that's how that trauma translated in a very simple way, but it also built my resilience, right? So it's like, that happened to me. What's next, right? So like, what's next? And that's how but during that time, I had therapy. Like I found therapy. I had to realign my relationship with God, because when you have nothing else, you have nothing else. Don't get me to preaching here today.
Go ahead, preach.
Because I had nothing else.
Right.
And I woke up one morning and I felt like I had nothing left. And the only thing I could do was go to church.
Wow.
And I got in my car and I sat in the back of the church and I said, God, if you deliver me from how I'm feeling today, I promise you, I will do the work that you have ordained me to do.
My God.
And that started my journey. Like I was able to mourn in a different way, but I've also been trained to, you don't stay still too long, keep working, right? So I didn't fully deal with that trauma. I transformed the trauma into drive. So next thing, and then really losing a job because that I realized that I wasn't supposed to be, and another job that I wasn't supposed to be in. Like, I was hired to be the black face of the school that they needed to relate to the parents. That is not a reason why you should become a principal. But in my mind, again, I failed at something else. I couldn't let that get behind me. So now let me take on a role that I know that this is wrong, but I can change it. Right. And I'm still dealing with trauma on top of that. So it's like, so when I tell you, like, it's been forged by fire, it certainly has. And I got an opportunity to open my own school. Right. So I was like, oh God, see, like, this is it. This is it. Together. Feeding me. And I ended up having to walk away from that. And not walk away in a way that I wanted to. It's like, I always tell people, it's like this must be what a surrogate mother feels like, having to turn your baby over to somebody else. And again, that probably was one of the most traumatic experiences that I had as a principal. But in my mind, how you deal with the trauma is bigger and better, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm moving to Baltimore, I'm moving. And it all, when I got to Baltimore, it all caught up to me. The trauma, the not taking care of myself, just everything caught up to me. I got really sick, really disconnected, not realizing that I was getting mentally ill as I was getting physically ill, and being away from home in a place that I didn't know. And that's what, and somebody came to me and told me, you need to go back home. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. A woman came to me and met me at 5:30 in the morning and said to me, get in my car, I have a message. I dreamt of you last night and I've never put eyes on you.
Do you know this lady? Oh, she never put eyes?
A teacher. One of the people that worked at the school was her mother. But she never saw me. She just only heard about me.
Okay.
And she said, I dreamt about you, but I never saw your face. I had to come here and tell you that God told me it's time for you to go back home, because the protection that you're going to need for what you're going to do next, you're going to need it in New York. And 3 days later, I saw the posting for Merrick.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the only job in New York that I applied for. Only. And so I knew that was it. So it's taking that trauma and turning it into triumph. And I finally feel like, and I don't know what Merrick has in store for the future, but I finally feel like I'm at the place in my life and in my career that I want to be in. There's so much more to do. There's so much, but I finally feel like I don't feel at this point like I got to go and do the next thing. I feel like I gotta do other things to underscore the work that I do at Merrick.
What you're doing now. Wow.
So that's the journey of trauma for me. And I've been working through depression and anxiety over the last 2 years or so has allowed me to get to that place. The affirmations that you're good enough, the affirmations that you deserve it, the affirmations that my past is not my present.
Absolutely.
And the biggest one is that I can't control everything.
Cannot.
So like I'm serious about, so that translates in a lot of ways. I'm serious about mental health for everyone. I'm really serious about giving people a break. You work hard, play hard, right? So we're gonna work really, really hard, but we're gonna play really hard.
Yes.
Do it together, and we're gonna keep pushing.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much for that. I have never heard you tell that story, but that's definitely a beautiful story. And I like the fact that you mentioned that, having gone through an experience in those trauma led you back to your center, God, right? You went to church and you made a commitment.
Yep.
If you brought me through this, you promised to do what he has purposed in you to do. And so you went down another path where you talk about the right fit. Wasn't the right fit for you. That's not where God wanted you to be at that moment. But you still went there. And even though I firmly believe that there's lessons in that, but God didn't turn away from what he had promised.
Nope. And the woman said to me, where there's vision, because I was like, go back home. She's like, well, where there's vision, there will be provision. And I said, and I didn't know. I was like, all right, I'm going home.
Blindly, wow.
I had decided, okay, I'm going home. That's what Merrick came into
Everything
play.
Happened.
Everything happened. And that's really, so that's courage, right? Courage comes with faith. And I have no reason to think that he won't do it for me again. Because I have no reason, because he's always
If
done
he
it.
did it before.
I have no reason, but it's my own inner fight with having to have control, right? My inner fight with not worrying about what is coming forward, and then like not dragging the past.
Yes.
So, you know, that all of those things are really hard as you're fighting faith. And you know, I went, because I thought it was ordained, right? So I was like, okay, God said I'm gonna go. But the powerful thing about it is, like, I always talk to you guys about the GPS, right? The reroute. That actually came from a sermon from church. That's not mine. And it's about faith. How, you know, just because you take the wrong route doesn't mean that your path isn't still the same. And God is your reroute. He reroutes you, right? He reroute. Okay. Because
it doesn't mean your destination is going to change either.
That doesn't mean the destination isn't going to change, right? And thank God that he does reroute us, right? Because we don't know any better.
Right. That's true. He knows. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I look at those things, and I like my faith is still there, and I still feel the same way. God, just, like, I know that this work is not mine.
God. Yeah.
That's why I never get too big for, and that's why, like, social media and these things are really weird to me, because I don't attach I can't see myself separate from the work. Like, I don't see myself separate from Merrick.
Right.
I don't see myself separate. But you know, the message is coming, and it is overflowing. It's overflowing, and he's lining it up in such a way that I know that, like, just all things are lined up. So I have a voice, so I have to speak it.
Yes. Definitely. Thank you for that. And I know that you mentioned also that the struggle between being faithful and dealing with your own inner turmoil, it's a struggle. But I would just encourage you to just, as you did before, and you say, God, if you deliver me, if you do this thing for me, I will do this. Just bring it before him, and he will make that way. Right. However you're going to get there, he will make that path clear. So just continue.
And you know what you say, the hair is standing up on my arms as you're talking, because it's so, like, you preach it to me, because that's where I am right now. So I also realize that I don't have to come to God fancy, right? So I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure everything is right. I gotta have the right words for him. I can't come to him not correct.
Understands gibberish.
Right. I'm like, he knows you. Oh, like, what's wrong with you? So I think that's my block.
He sees you just as you are, naked as you are. He sees you inside out. And I think that's a beautiful, that you're able to have that relationship, that you're able to go to him to be able to center you whenever you feel like you've drifted, you know. So thank you so much for that. So I know we're talking about trauma and resilience, and it would be, I want us to talk about something that happened.
Yes, come on.
They make you a little emotional, so just get the tissues out.
It's okay, because they say my tears let you know I'm still here, right?
Absolutely, yes. So as a team, as a Merrick family, we went through something very tragic, where we lost a staff member, and this was, you know, at the peak when when COVID was just being talked about, at least to me. And I want to ask you if you can share how that makes you feel, or made you feel, you know, and from it could be from a personal standpoint as well as from a leader standpoint.
It's hard to separate both of them, like the leader and the professional. But I mean, listen, I feel like it was the hardest time of my life. Like, it was really, because I don't really believe in this thing about work-life balance. I figure out how to incorporate my work with my life, right? Like, that's it. That's the only way I can live, because it'll never be balanced. So it was the most difficult thing I had to do personally and professionally. Probably next to burying my father and my best friend in a span of 3 months. But it was difficult because of what COVID means to us, right? So just to take you back a little bit, Miss Gail, we can speak her name. Miss Gail we became friends. And what a lot of people don't know is when I interviewed at Merrick, she gave me the hardest time in my interview. Hardest time in my interview. And I remember saying, who is this? But and her giving me that hard time had me like step my game up. And I remember a conversation that we had after that. She was like, I knew you were the one, but I wanted everybody else in the room to know that you were the one.
Oh, wow.
So that stuck with me. And so we forged a relationship because she was like one of my biggest cheerleaders at Merrick. Anything she got behind. And then we found out we had the same birthday. So like that like kind of like still, and she wanted to be a leader. So I was investing in her being a leader. So we built a very strong personal and professional relationship. So, and then I lost, my car got damaged. And so she took me to work and picked me up every day. So we had those conversations in the car. She's a big part of some of the healing that I did because I was like totally burnt out after the renewal visit. I was like totally hit a wall.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah,
she kept me going. So I was always indebted to her. And and we used to fight all the time too. We used to argue all the time. But and she really was very pivotal of me leaving a really toxic relationship. So she was pivotal with me going back to therapy. So all of that, like how things happen. So, we knew we were going to celebrate each other's birthday again. And then she was having this baby. I pretty much self-proclaimed that I was going to be the baby's godmother. And
absolutely.
She had some nerve. But that was going to be it. And I had been going and the other thing that people don't really know is that I had already been planning to close the school from mid-January of last year. I had already had like a plan. I was ready. I was ready. When they closed school, I had a whole script on what we were going to do. So we had decided to close schools way before the DOE, but we wanted to watch to see what was going to happen. And the last times I spoke to her in person, we were in the parking lot and she said to me, what are you going to do, Pugh? You got to close these schools. And I'm like, it's not that easy, because we would always have these philosophical. And I'm like, it ain't that easy, Gabby. We close the schools, the city shuts down because the kids can't go to school, and we're arguing back and forth. And so she was like, but I'm scared. And I looked at her and I said, scared of what? So she said, I'm scared. I'm just really worried about this. She's like, my husband is home coughing. So whatever you decide to do this weekend, just remember that. And I was like, all right, just go ahead, right? But I took that in the back of my head, which was really why I pushed that weekend to close schools, but they ended up closing schools anyway.
Right.
So one of the last conversations, I knew that she was getting sick. I knew that she was getting sick. We would talk, and she was hard-headed just like me. I'm like, you got to go to the doctor. She's taking care of her mom, got really sick prior to that. We were more so worried in prayer about her mother. I never thought for 1 second. Never thought for 1 second that she would get sick. And I remember the day she went to the hospital, she called me to tell me that she could not go on virtual, and I lost it. I was like, are you crazy? Like, don't call me and tell me this. You need to get to the hospital right now. So Waterson and I called her on three-way and was like, you need to go now. I was like, what do you need for the house that you're worried about? We'll drop that off. So she said, okay, I'm going now. She stayed on text message with me for 2 days, and then I didn't hear from her anymore. And then I didn't text her back because I got so busy at work. And the last text message she sent to me was like, I'm having trouble breathing. This is really painful. And I was just like, whoa. So that was the last time we spoke. And how I found out she passed away, because I had to put it in my mind. I was like, Gail's too strong. She like me, she gonna go in the hospital, let her rest up, her and the baby rest up for a little while.
Right, because she was pregnant.
And I think I totally blacked out that anything would happen to her. So when it did, how I found out was 2 teachers called me in the middle of the night, screaming, crying. And I was like, God, what am I gonna do, right? So, because I couldn't mourn, because I had these 2 voices that needed me, right? And of all the people they could have called in the world, they called me. And so I took that, like that was my responsibility to take care of them.
Yeah.
And I had to, right? But my voice and her spirit said it, right? It was healing through being able to take care of other people. And I got up the next morning and I must have cried I was like, you got 30 minutes to cry. And I gave myself 30 minutes to cry, and then I went into action. I worried so much about everybody else. I was like, oh my God, we got to get a message out to Merrick. People are going to be devastated. We got to get grief counselors. I got to get all of these things. What about the kids? I never for 1 second thought about me. Not for 1 second, because I knew the work I had to do, and I knew that I would get healing by providing a space for healing for everyone else.
Absolutely.
And if it weren't for Merrick, right? I remember the day that I had to get in front of all of you guys. I was just, my voice was shaking. And I remember somebody said, just be vulnerable. And that's what I told you. I was like, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. That's my friend. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I could tell you this, we're going to do it together.
Yeah.
And I met that from the pit of my stomach. And then I got a release. Like I got a release of, so being able to connect again back to my purpose. I was able to get through it. I don't know that I have fully mourned.
Right.
I know that I won't allow myself to feel it. So what I do is I release it gradually. I release it gradually, and that's me honoring her and me. And it's like I gave this analogy of how kids that are in trauma cut themselves, and a lot of times they cut because they need that release of pain. So for me, it's not cutting myself. It is finding those opportunities where I easily, where I can just let a little bit out at a time. At a time. So yeah, but the community, my tribe, again, like, it was healing in that. It was healing in watching you guys heal. It was healing in watching you be vulnerable. It was healing in watching your kids be vulnerable. It was healing in that. And as much as it hurts, because it hurts like hell, I worried more so about what it was going to do to our school, because we couldn't take nothing else. In my mind, right? We couldn't take nothing else. But I was able to take some of it for us. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, so that's how. And I didn't cry. Look at that.
Yeah, you almost had me crying. But definitely, thank you so much for that. I definitely remember the day when you spoke to us, and I remembered, just everybody coming together. And I just want to say thank you to the other members of the leadership team as well, because at that time I was dealing with the loss of my son still. We had other staff members who had lost parents and just different things. So the fact that Merrick was able to cultivate a team where you had a whole wellness team come in to provide supports, because the team that I'm on, it's like we are the ones who are supposed to be providing that support. So to know that the school was able to just extend that and say, our teachers are mourning, the students are mourning, the staff is mourning, what can we do? That helped tremendous. It still is helping because we're still able to tap into those resources. And that's one of the things that I love about Merrick. And I tell you this, like, when that happened, I had a newfound appreciation for leadership and for just the community that I'm in. Because I felt taken care of. And that's how I feel. And it's not, it'll take me longer to explain this, but when you're grounded somewhere in your planet, you want to know that you're going to be watered and you're going to be able to grow. And I feel like even in the moments where something happened to shift us, we were still able to be watered and to be nurtured. So I just want to tell you, thank you so much for being selfless and putting your emotions and feelings aside in order so that
and it's a lot of, not just because we work together, but it's a lot of stuff behind the back. I always tell people, like teachers, I'm like, you need to be a fly on the wall of this work, because it's like, one, I'm honored and thank you for what you said, because I feel like like that was the job well done. That feels good to me. But it's also like, it's hard. It's so hard. And it's like, it feels like sometimes, like, I don't know, like when teachers are teachers and they stay up all night and they do all this research for lesson plans, and then they get it and they're like super duper excited, and then they get in front of the kids and it's like, or the kids are mad because it's not, or you know, it's like, it's that every day.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to, because you guys are, I don't always see from your seat and you don't see from mine, right?
Absolutely.
So that's why it's important for us to communicate and collaborate, because I got the 900-foot view of things. And I feel like I'm always fighting. Like, I wish that this job was just me making decisions, but I feel like I'm always fighting. I'm always fighting for what's right, like fighting for what's best, fighting for, you know, just because my idea is that my people should have everything they need to be successful, period. Absolutely. I don't care what you think about them, how you think of them, but we can't do unless we know they have everything to be successful.
Absolutely.
And that's a fight, because everybody doesn't always feel that way. But I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
That. So it's your decisions, especially now during COVID, I think the hardest thing that I've had to deal with is your decisions now become life or death. I've always proverbially felt like my decisions were life or death, but my decisions now are life or death. Right. And I think my experience with Miss Gail, just watching this, like, I cried every day of the pandemic when we first, because I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. Like, whatever I decide is not going to be the right thing. Right. And am I going to be able to live with the fact that one of my decisions may cost somebody's life? I ain't built for that. Right.
It's a very tough decision. Yeah, a tough spot to be in. Absolutely.
Yeah, so, like, I've been as serious as I've ever been, because I know that, and I know what it's like to deal with that trauma of I would again if I had to lose somebody else again. So everything I do is to prevent that from, and I just don't ever want to feel what it's like to lose a student. So, like,
that's tough.
It's tough. So, but you do it and then I had to remember to take myself, every decision you make isn't life or death, right? Every decision you make is your decision. Some of it comes with great triumphs. Some of them come with consequences. Do it prayerfully.
Absolutely.
Do it purposefully and intentionally, and it's going to play out the way that it needs to, because you can't control it, right? It's that whole thing. You can't control it.
I could not have said it any better. Thank you so much, Principal Pugh, for talking with us about trauma and resilience, and in doing that, being so vulnerable with our audience, with myself, about the process. Thank you guys so much for joining us for part 2 of our Courageous Leadership series. We hope that you'll stick around for part 3. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Please subscribe to Underneath Her Skin and join us for more stories. Thank you. Bye-bye.